got nightmares in my head, I fear that the thoughts build up until I can't hear, that my mind fills up into a creature, and it haunts me somewhere much deeper. Anxiety, filling up every space, no privacy. And silently, it could build and build until you finally see, whoa, it's taking over, damn, no closure, moving closer. No exposure, I just wanna be a loner. Some can't stay sober, looking over all their shoulders, like moving boulders just to get out of the home. It sucks, I've had enough, I don't wanna feel the stuck under the rug, all my problems that I shove. I got nightmares in my head, I
Hello my bookish friends, welcome to my Halloween recommendations video. Although in the spirit of full disclosure, I haven't read every single book that's on this list, so I can't fully recommend all of them. But all of the ones that I haven't read yet are going to be on my TBR for this October. So I'm going to start out with some non horror recommendations for those of you that aren't into horror but you still want to take part in the spooky season. I have a few recommendations for you. So these are romances and female relationship books. And first we have Suburban Hell by Maureen Kilmer. And this is about a group of moms who, like all suburban stories, they get sick of being moms and housewives and all of that, and they kind of start a girls' club. And so they create what they call a she shed in the back of someone's backyard. And it's just a place for them to hang out and just be girls and do their thing without being bothered by the husband and the kids. Well, the problem is when they christen the she shed, one of their friends gets possessed. So it's supposed to be really fun and but not like super spooky or scary. It's meant to be more comedic. So if you're more into horror that's a little bit funny, then this is for you. Next, we have The Dead Romantics by Ashley Poston. This is a romance about a woman who was a ghostwriter for a romantic writer, and her father passes away, so she comes back home for his funeral and she sees a ghost outside the funeral home, and eventually she starts having romantic feelings for that ghost. So that sounds like a lot of fun. Next we have Love in the Time of Serial Killers by Alicia Thompson. And this is a romance about a girl who's obsessed with true crime podcasts, and this man moves next door to her and she becomes convinced that he's a serial killer. Although I'm not really sure why, because he's a very, very nice man and there's not really any true reason for her to think that, but for some reason she does. But this was a lot of fun. So if you're looking for a romance that has a little bit of spooky vibes, then this would be a good one to start with. Next, we have My Roommate is a Vampire by Jenna Levine. And this is a new release, so I have not read this one yet. This is about a lady whose roommate sleeps all day and goes to work at night. And then he also talks like he's in a Regency romance or something. And then she discovers like those little blood bags that you see at the hospital in the fridge. So of course she's convinced that he has to be a vampire. So this one sounds like a lot of fun. So I can't wait to get to this one. Next we have The House That Death Built by Mel Stone. And this one is a romance about a seamstress. I think this is set probably in like Victorian times or something. I'm not 100% sure. This is about a woman who falls in love with a man who is a widower, and she starts to suspect that his previous wife might have died under suspicious circumstances. Ooh. I haven't read this one yet, so I'm looking forward to getting to this one. Next, we have The Ex-Hex by Erin Sterling. And this one, I for sure want to get to this one this October. I've been meaning to get to it for a couple of years now and just haven't got there. This is a witchy book, if you can't tell from the cover. So this is about a witch who breaks up with her boyfriend and is understandably upset, and so she puts a hex on him. And then she comes back to her hometown for the fall festival and to help the people in her family recharge the ley lines. And she meets this man that she broke up with and then discovers that she kind of actually likes him still. And maybe he's not as bad a guy as she thought he was previously. But this hex that she put him on is wreaking havoc with their relationship and with his life. And so they're trying to deal with that. And it sounds like it's going to be a lot of fun. It sounds very cozy and fun and witchy and fall time. And I can't wait to read this. If I end up liking it, The Kiss Curse is the second in the series. The third in the series actually comes out this month. So hopefully I'll like it and be able to continue on with the rest of the story. I didn't read the synopsis in case it spoils the first book, so I don't know what this is about. I think it follows her sister though and not her. So maybe it wouldn't have ruined anything, but better to be safe than sorry. Continuing in the witchy vibe vein, we have Practical Magic. I don't know how close this is to the movie, but I absolutely love the movie Practical Magic with Sandra Bullock. And so I'm hoping it's at least a little bit similar. So this is like a family drama, generational witchy book. For those of you who may not have seen that movie, This is about two sister witches, and it kind of follows them in their love life. And one of them's a little bit more dangerous, and the other one's a little bit more held back. But the women in their family have been cursed that they'll never fall in love because their ancestor was brokenhearted back in the day, and she started a curse, and so everybody in her family has trouble with finding love. So that one should be a lot of fun. There's 4 books in the series. So hopefully I'll like this one and I can continue on with the rest of the series. Next we have Stalking Jack the Ripper by Carrie, I can never say that last name, Maniscalco. And I absolutely loved this book. It was so, so good. So this is set in Victorian times, as you can guess, because it's about Jack the Ripper. But it's about this girl, and she's, I don't know what they called him back then, but kind of like a mortician, or I don't know. I don't remember exactly what her job description is, but basically, when they do autopsies, that's what she does. So, anyways, and she's a female, obviously, and during that time, that was, unheard of. Women don't deal with corpses. That's just crazy. I love stuff about Jack the Ripper. I love books set in Victorian times. It has some romance in it, and it was just a lot of fun. There's 4 in this series, and I loved every single book. So I'm not going to showcase every single book in this series, but the second one I thought was fitting for Halloween. It's called Hunting Prince Dracula. So the first one deals with a serial killer, and then the second one, she travels to Transylvania and gets involved with some vampires. Speaking of vampires, we have this new release, which is called Vampires of El Norte by Isabel Canis. I don't know how you say that. I don't speak Spanish, but I'm probably butchering it. But this is a historical romance with a little bit of vampires kind of sprinkled in. So this is a good one if you like romances and you like history and you like vampires. Next we have Such Sharp Teeth by Rachel Harrison. I absolutely love Rachel Harrison's works, and this one is so good. If you can't tell, it's about a vampire. I mean, a vampire. I mean, it's about a werewolf. See, it's obviously about a vampire. So this is about a woman who is bitten by a werewolf on her way home from a Halloween party, and she starts to turn into one, but she doesn't tell anybody. She just goes about her life, and slowly these things happen to her. And the imagery in this is actually fantastic. So it's more cozy, and it's got a little bit of romance in it, but it does have some great imagery. And I loved the relationship between her and her sister. It was so heartwarming and it was fun, and I loved the allegory between her sister being pregnant and having a child, and how that kind of makes you feel like you're losing yourself, you're losing control of your body, to this other person. And it's kind of like an allegory for her turning into a werewolf. And so I really loved that parallel that this author drew, and this was so much fun. And if you like her work, then you should try her witchy book, Cackle. First of all, is this not the most fabulous cover you've ever seen? I absolutely love it. So this is another one about female friendships. This woman breaks up with her boyfriend and moves to this small little town in order to get past it. And she meets this friend who she soon starts to suspect as a witch. And some things happen. Their relationship, I'll admit, is a little bit toxic, but at the same time is very heartwarming. And I normally hate spiders, but there's a spider in here named Ralph, and he's so adorable. So if you're into like a cozy little witch book, this is fabulous. Hey guys, this is me in the future. I forgot a book that I really wanted to include, but I didn't want to get all dressed up again, so I'm just gonna insert this here, and hopefully you guys won't mind. This is another romance that I wanted to recommend. It's called Beauty and the Clockwork Beast. This is a steampunk romance, and it's one of my favorites, and so I really wanted to include it for anyone who wants a good spooky romance for this October. This is a really good one. It's about Beauty and the Beast, but also has like werewolves and vampires and a ghost, and it's got some creepy moments, and it's just really, really good. I highly recommend this one. So if you want a little spooky romance this October, go ahead and check this one out. I don't think you'll be disappointed. Okay, so those are all the cozy books I have for you guys. The rest of these are going to be horror and thrillers. I'm going to start with middle grade, move on to YA, and then move on to adult. And by and large, these all take place in October, so either on Halloween or around Halloween. So for our middle grade books, I of course have to start with the Goosebumps. And this is The Haunted Mask by R.L. Stine. I actually just read this a few days ago. I don't remember if I read this as a kid or not, but either way, it was fantastic. It was a lot of fun. So, this is about a little girl who's kind of a fraidy cat, and she's always getting picked on by her friends who like to scare her. So she decides that this Halloween she's going to get them back. And she's going to go find the scariest, most disgusting masks that she can find and scare these friends that have always told her that she's such a fraidy cat. So she goes to this Halloween store, and tucked away in the back storeroom are the ugliest, scariest masks. And at first, the guy that works there is reluctant to sell them to her, but he finally reneges and decides to sell her one of these masks. So she puts this mask on to scare her friends, but unfortunately, it becomes stuck to her face and she can't get it off, and she starts turning into this monster. So, this is all about trick or treating, and it's set on Halloween, and it had all the vibes. Next, we have Ravenfall. This is by Kaylin Josephson. This is a new release, so I haven't read this one yet. I just got it a few days ago. And this is about a little girl whose family owns a B&B for like monsters and otherworldly beings. And I guess she's also a psychic. And so her and her little friend, they come into contact with like a Celtic mythology creature, and they have to save the inn from this creature, and it all happens on Halloween night. So that sounds like it could be a lot of fun. Next, we have the Fright Watch trilogy. The first one's called The Stitchers. This is by Lauren Lawrence. And this is about a little girl who just recently lost her father, and she's dealing with that grief. And her and her father would always spy on the neighbors because they were convinced that something was weird about them. They never seemed to age, and so they're always like, are they aliens? Is it a government experiment? Like, what's going on here? And so, after some time has passed and she's done a little bit of grieving, she starts observing these neighbors that she's dubbed the oldies to kind of try and discover what's wrong with them. This first book does not take place on Halloween, but it has obviously spooky vibes. It's still horror. But then the second two in the series, called The Collectors and Unmasked, these two do take place during Halloween time. I don't know if it's on Halloween or just in October. This one in particular has to deal with the Halloween party. So either way, they both take place in October. So I want to at least read the first one, even though it doesn't take place in October, so I can get to these next two. I haven't read this trilogy yet, but I hear they're fantastic. So that's all of the middle grade. So now I'll be moving on to the young adult section. First, I have three young adult books that I like the beginning, where they're not strictly horror, but they have all the spooky vibes. So if you're trying to tip your toe to the genre, these might be a good fit for you. The first one, I didn't know if I was actually going to include it because it really is not horror. It's not spooky vibes. It's not Halloween. It's not any of that. But it's a Disney book. But I figured it's called The Wicked Ones, and it's about the villains of the story. So this is about Cinderella's evil stepsisters. So I thought it was kind of fitting, for Halloween, because it's not about the hero, it's about the villain. So it's got kind of that spooky vibe, I guess. But anyways, I have not read this one yet, but it looks super cute, and I think the stepsisters do find love, so we'll see who's able to love these hideous creatures. So that should be a lot of fun. Next, we have Anatomy, a Love Story by Dana Swartz. And this one, it says it's a love story, and it does have, the typical YA romance in it, but I don't think that's what the love story is about. This is about a love story with anatomy and with medical practices, and this is set in Victorian times, and so it's about this girl who at that time was not able to go to medical school and isn't supposed to be dealing with corpses and other, unsavory things, but she does anyways. And so this one, I didn't realize at the time that there was going to be a sequel or probably even a trilogy. So I haven't read the sequel yet, but I have read this one and I enjoyed it a lot. It had, those Frankenstein vibes, so I enjoyed that. If you've already read this book, but you really enjoyed it yourself and you're looking for something that's similar, then I would recommend The Corpse Queen. So this one is about a woman. Well, I say woman, but it's YA. So this is about a girl who, her aunt is a body snatcher who gives up bodies to the medical schools for money. And so she ends up living with her aunt and learning this trade. At that time it was hard for women to make money, so it was kind of clever of her. So I also haven't read this one, but I'm looking forward to it. It sounds really spooky and really fun. And then, of course, we have to have some more R.L. Stine because, you just have to. And this is Halloween Party. This is a Fear Street novel. I read it last year and it was pretty decent. It was pretty good. And this is about a girl who goes to a Halloween party and then somebody ends up dead and they're trying to decide who it is. So, lots of fun. Love the cover, by the way. And then we have Halloween Night and Halloween Night number 2. And I have not read these ones, and I'm hoping to get to them this month. So let me hold those both up so you can see them. I hope they're in the right order. Next, we have Trick or Treat by Richie Tinkersley Cusick. I always have to look at it because it's so long. But anyways, so this is about a girl who moves into a haunted house, and then during October, some practical jokes start to come her way and are sinister. It's like Fear Street where we want you dead and all that stuff. And so she's trying to decide if it's real or not. So this one is also one that I'm planning on reading this month, hopefully. Then we have Autumn Crow High by Cameron Chaney. He's actually a fellow booktuber, and he just came out with this like a month ago. Was it last month or this month? I'm not sure, but it just came out. So this was written in the vein of Fear Street, where you have one town that's has all these different characters and all these different stories about it. So this is going to be part of a series. And this takes place in the town of Autumn Crow. And in Autumn Crow, every day is Halloween. So I'm very excited to read this. I haven't read anything by Cameron Chaney yet, but I'm excited to do so. And then we have Long Live the Pumpkin Queen, which, you just see this cover and you just know this is October, this is Halloween. That's really all you need to know. But I will tell you a little bit what this is about. So this is about Sally, obviously, and she goes into a different town. Like in the movie when Jack goes into the forest and there's all those different holidays. She finds a different door and it takes her to like a dream world, and she meets the Sandman and she has to defeat the Sandman. And this one was pretty good. I wouldn't say I was completely head over heels in love with this book, but it was enjoyable for what it was. It was a cute little story, and I really love anything to do with Nightmare Before Christmas. So, yeah. So if you're looking for something cute and fun for this spooky season, again, this would be good for those of you that aren't really into horror and want something a little more cozy. This would be a good fit for you. Then we have There's No Way I'd Die First by Lisa Springer. I'm actually in the middle of reading this one right now. And this is a YA about a girl who is a rich social media influencer, and she's hosting a Halloween party at her house while her parents are away for an anniversary. And it's supposed to be this big over the top celebration that she wants everybody to video and post about so that she can get more likes and get more subscribers because she wants to start a blog. And so she hired this it clown, Pennywise, to come to her party and play a game of hide and seek. But little does she know that this murderous clown is a real murderous clown who's going to take them out one by one, probably because they're all rich snobs. This has major slasher vibes and sounds like it should be a lot of fun. I really was intrigued by this one because there's always that, I don't know how true it is, but there's always that stigma that black people always die first in horror movies, and so she's gonna be like the first black final girl, so that's kind of fun. Next we have Mina and the Slayers by Amy McCaw. This is the second in a series, so you probably want to read the first one first. It's called Mina and the Undead, and it's about vampires. So this was written to be kind of like Buffy the Vampire. It's got the 90s vibes because it's set in the 90s, and it's got haunted attractions, and it's set in the, I think it's set in Louisiana, so that's really fun. So I have read the first one, but I have not read the second installment. I'm hoping to get to it this October, but I'm getting a lot of books on my TBR, so this one might not make the cut this year. I might have to wait till next year. If you're into 90s vibes, if you're into vampires, this is a good one. I can't really tell you what it's about because it's the second in the series, but it should be a lot of fun. Next, we have The Haunting by Natasha Preston. This is a new release that just came out a couple of weeks ago. Normally, this author writes more of thrillers. I think this is the first horror book that I've seen her write, so I'm pretty excited about it. I don't 100% know what it's about, but I just saw the cover and the title and I was sold. But this author is kind of hit or miss for me. I've read some by her that I've really liked, and I've read other ones that I'm just like, meh, not really for me. So it usually starts out like the first couple of chapters are usually pretty cringy and like super YA, but once you get into the story, they're usually pretty fun. So I'm excited to get into this. Again, it's on my TBR for this October, and we'll see if I hopefully get to it. Next, we have Live Your Best Lie by Jessie Weaver. This is a thriller. It's about a girl who's a social media influencer, and she, is living her best life and has all these likes, all these followers, but then she's kidnapped, and the kidnapper posts that she's going to be dead in 5 minutes. And she is. So she ends up dead. They find her lifeless body. And now there's 4 people. I think there's like one that wants to be her, and one that used to be her enemy, and like an ex-boyfriend, and like her best friend or something. Anyways, there's 4 different people that are trying to figure out who murdered their friend. So this one, again, I haven't read this one. I don't think I'm going to get to it this year, so I might hold off until next year. But it does take place on Halloween. Next, we have How to Survive Your Murder by Danielle Valentine. And this one is on my TBR for this October. I'm hoping to get to it soon. It sounds like a lot of fun. It's about a girl whose sister was murdered in a cornfield during October. And when she's at the courthouse to bring charges against her supposed murderer, she goes to the bathroom and she's knocked out by a Sidney Prescott lookalike. And then when she wakes up, it's once again Halloween night, back when her sister died. And so she thinks she might have a chance to save her sister's life this time if she can figure out who actually killed her and how and when, then she can hopefully stop this murder from taking place. So this one sounds like it should be a lot of fun, and I'm hoping to get to it soon. Okay, that's all the YA recommendations I have for you. I'm going to move on to the adult. Okay, so I know that this time of year, the fall time, a lot of people really like to read the classics during this time of year. I don't know if it's because school's starting and it seems a little bit more academic, or I don't know, but for whatever reason, it seems like a lot of people are really into reading classics during September and October. So for those of you who feel that way, I'm not going to recommend any of the actual classics because we all know what they are. So I'm not going to do that. But when I think of the classics, I think the most autumnal and the most one with fall vibes would be The Legend of Sleepy Hollow. So if you're interested in that legend, I have a couple of recommendations. We have The Horseman by Christina Henry. I really enjoyed this book. I thought it was a lot of fun. And this was my first Christina Henry book, and I thought it was very autumn, very fall, very creepy. So if you're really into the Headless Horseman, I think you'll enjoy this. So this is a YA novel, and it's about 14-year-old Ben, and she's the granddaughter of Brom Bones. And she's always grown up hearing about the legend of Sleepy Hollow, but they always thought it was a myth. But then one day they found a little boy's body dead in the woods, and he's missing his head, and they start to think that maybe the myth is not really a myth. So next, in that same vein, we have The Spellbook of Katrina Van Tassel by Alyssa Palumbo. I hope I'm saying that correctly. So I haven't read this one yet, but it sounds like an enjoyable time. It's a little bit chunky, so I'm a little bit nervous to read it. I probably won't get to this one until next year. But this is about Katrina Van Tassel, and she's in love with Ichabod Crane, and they have like a sordid affair. And then he disappears on Halloween night, or as they say, All Hallows Eve. And so she gets together with one of her witch friends, and they try to discover what happened to Ichabod Crane. And again, it's kind of like Horseman, where they're trying to decide if the legend of Sleepy Hollow is real or a myth, and that maybe Ichabod Crane was killed by the Headless Horseman. Another classic that people always talk about this time of year is Edgar Allan Poe. Mike Flanagan is coming out with his new TV series that's a retelling of the Fall of the House of Usher. And so I want to recommend Usher's Passing. This is also a retelling of the Fall of the House of Usher. And this is a Paperbacks from Hell. For those of you who may not know what that is, it's the book that Grady Hendrix wrote about all the awesome horror of the 80s and 90s. Again, this one's a little bit of a chunker as well. I also have not read this one, but I'm very excited for it. This doesn't take place on or around Halloween, but I hear it does have like a pumpkin man as the villain. So even though this doesn't actually take place in Halloween, I figured if it has a pumpkin man, then that screams fall and Halloween time. So I thought that this would be a great one to read during October. Next, I want to recommend Dracula Ascending. And this is a mashup between Dracula and Frankenstein. So this is basically the story of if Dracula and Frankenstein's monster were one and the same person, how would the story have gone? If you like Dracula, if you like Frankenstein, I think you would enjoy this mashup. And then I also wrote Fall of the House of Crane. This one's a retelling of The Haunting of Hill House, but it has a lot of Edgar Allan Poe stories in it, including Fall of the House of Usher. So if you're looking to read some more stories about the Ushers before the Mike Flanagan movie, this might be a fun one to get your hands on. And then we have The Strange Case of Dorian Gray, and this is a mashup between The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde and The Picture of Dorian Gray. So if you're looking to find some more classics in your life, but not the actual classics because you've already read them, then those might be a great one to add to your TBR because you can still enjoy the classics but in a different way. And the good thing about these mashups in particular is you're getting a lot of the same story because they're retellings, but obviously there's some changes and some differences. But if you've always been intimidated about reading the classics because there's usually just like pages of long prose and usually has that old-timey language to it that can be intimidating to people, then this might be a great one because you're getting to know the same stories, but at the same time it's written in a little bit more modern way. So you still have the Gothic vibes, but it might be a little bit more palatable for a modern reader. So that might be a good one to get your hands on for the October if you're one of those who's been wanting to read the classics but have been a little bit intimidated by them. Next, we have Halloween Party by Agatha Christie. I haven't read this one, but I already went and saw the movie, and so I kind of want to hold off because I already know what happens, and if I read it like right after, it might not be as enjoyable, but if I wait another year, then maybe I might have forgotten something, or maybe it's just like, oh, I want to revisit that story or whatever. So so I haven't read this one, but I don't really plan to this year. Probably gonna wait till next year. This is about Hercule Poirot, and he's the detective that goes to Italy, and they're having a Halloween party, and somebody ends up dead, and so as the detective there, he has to try and figure out what happened to her, and they want him to believe that it was something supernatural, but of course he doesn't think so. So we'll find out whether it actually is or not. Next we have Dark Harvest by Norman Partridge. I read this one last year, and this is about a pumpkin man named the October Boy, and every October the October Boy comes out, and all of the kids in the town are like trapped outside, and they have to try and get to like a church or get inside. I can't quite remember, but they're trying to run around all night on All Hallows Eve to try and get away from this October Boy. I remember liking it, but it wasn't like my favorite, but I did like it. I'd probably give like a 3 stars. So if you're looking for something really short, it's just a tiny little novella, and you just want some creepy pumpkin vibes, then this might be a good one to check out. Next we have All Hallows by Christopher Golden. I actually just finished this book, and I have an October reading vlog reading 3 or 4 different books, so if you want to get my in-depth thoughts, then that will be up at the end of the month. But this one was really fun. It all takes place on Halloween. It has all the trick or treat vibes and the Halloween haunts and the Halloween parties and all of that stuff, and lots of autumnal stuff. I really enjoyed this one. I thought it was a lot of fun. This is another one where there's like a pumpkin man as the villain. That seems to be a ongoing thing in these Halloween type books called Pumpkin Roll, and it's by Josie Kilpack. I really liked the first one, and I read the next two in the series, and the second one was still pretty good. The third one, I was like, eh. And I was kind of being done with the series, but then I saw that they had this one that was set on Halloween. Or maybe it's not set on Halloween, but it's around Halloween time in October. And so then I was like, okay, well, I want to at least read that one. So I don't know. I don't think this is like the next one in the series, but I just picked it up anyways. So this is about middle-aged lady who loves to bake, and her boyfriend, his grandkids come over and they're babysitting them, and they're convinced that her neighbor is a witch. And so she's like, no, she's just a nice older lady, but they're like, no, she's a witch. And so she tries to get to know her neighbor more and to help calm down the kids and let her know that she's just a normal old lady, but she's kind of not acting like a normal old lady. And so she's like, what is going on with this lady? Maybe the kids are right. Maybe she is a witch. And then she finds out that this woman had been attacked. And so she kind of puts on her detective hat. She likes to play neighborhood sleuth or whatever. She's kind of nosy. And so she decides to figure out what's going on with this neighbor. So hopefully it would be fun. So as you can tell, I haven't read this one yet, but I hope to get to it either this year or next year. Okay, the next three I also haven't read. They're all thrillers. This one's called The Mother Next Door, and this is about a neighborhood Halloween block party. And there's this group of women who put this party together every year. There used to be 5 of them, but then one of them passed away, so now there's only 4. But then a new mother moves into town and kind of wants to be a part of this group, and so they're like, oh well, it'd be nice to have 5 of us again, and so they kind of let her into her group. But then they start receiving these threatening messages about wanting to spill their secrets and all of that. So hopefully it will be a good time. I hear good things about it, so I'm hopeful that I'm gonna like this one. The next one is One of Us is Dead by Genevieve Rose. Did I say that right? Geneva Rose, sorry. So this is about, I don't really know what this one is about. I know it's about a group of women again, and it's kind of has those like catty vibes where they're friends, but you kind of wonder, why are they friends? And I really only picked it up for my TBR this month because I hear it has a really great Halloween party in it. So that's why I picked it up. I don't know if I'll actually get to it this year. I might make it into my TBR for next year, but that's the main reason I picked this up. I know that sounds probably dumb, but I hear good things about it, but I don't know that much about it, to be honest. Next, we have Wrong Place, Wrong Time. And this one takes place on Halloween night. It's about a woman who looks out the window and discovers her son murdering someone. And she's thinking in her head, my son would never hurt anybody. Like, why would he have done that? I don't even know this person that he supposedly killed. And so it has apparently some time travel aspects to it. And so she keeps going back in time to the same night that her son murdered this man. And she's trying to figure out why her son would have done that. So I hear good things. I hear it's really good. So I'm excited to read it. So that's all the Halloween recommendations I have for you. I hope you find something to add to your TBR for this spooky season, and I hope it works for you. If you enjoyed this video, I hope you'll like it and consider subscribing. If you hit that notification bell, you'll never miss a video from me. See ya! Happy Halloween!